It's Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. Welcome to Serpentes Sunday for December 26th, 2021. Happy Boxing Day if that's something you celebrate. Hopefully everybody had a great holiday week. This is one of my carpet pythons, Sahul. He is a 4-year-old Morelia spilota, and he's one of the first carpet pythons that I actually ever got. And he just moved into this new enclosure a few days ago. He has been in a 4-foot long by 2 foot deep by 18-inch high enclosure, and he likes to climb, and he doesn't get to come out much because he's one of my shyer snakes. He comes out every so often and exercises, but he doesn't come out a lot, so I wanted him to have a bigger space to live in. So this is a 4-foot long by 2 foot high by 2 foot deep enclosure, and he just moved into it a few days ago. So this is going to be my first time feeding him in it. And you guys are going to get to see that right now. So we're going to see if he responds to his target training in his new enclosure. And whenever I do the target training in a new location or in a new manner, I always just make it something simple. So I don't make it a case where I'm going to ask him to shift out of his enclosure or anything. I'm just going to ask him to do something very simple. And then I'm going to offer the reinforcement. Nice job. And that's because he's literally only been in this environment 3 days. And so I don't want to have him do some big elaborate behavior. He's just getting used to this environment, and lots of his old furnishings are in here, but he also has new furnishings in here because there's more space. And so he's getting settled, he's getting used to it. As I said, he isn't one that comes out a lot or is used to a lot of change. So I didn't want to ask him to do anything difficult for his training session. And as you see, it took him a few seconds, not a few minutes, to realize what was happening. But once he did, he responded beautifully, and he targeted from where he was sitting over to this rock. And I had to remind him that when I move the target from this vertical orientation to a horizontal orientation, that he is to then move down and touch the target and pause there. And he did. And I couldn't ask for anything better. His first feeding in his new enclosure. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this snake, Moondor, who is about to also change enclosures. Moondor is a 3-year-old Morelia spilota. And when I put these snakes on a conservative feeding schedule, meaning I feed lean, I don't feed extremely often, and I don't feed extremely big prey, I notice that they stay relatively small until they start hitting about 3 or 4 years old. And then it seems like they just all of a sudden balloon up into an adult looking bigger snake. And that's what he's recently done. He has been in this converted tub for much longer than I expected him to ever be. It's just served him really, really well. And he suddenly is just bigger. He's suddenly just gotten longer and thicker. And so he is lucky enough to be one of the snakes that is moving into one of these new 4 by 2 by 2 black box enclosures. This one is the first one of this newest set that I just put together. There's not even a snake in here yet. I just started decorating it, and I still have to hang the lighting and heating and the sky hide. A royal python named Sarek is actually going in this one, and then 2 more of these are stacking on top. And Moondor here is going to get to move into one of these 4 by 2 by 2 black box cages enclosures. And I really think he'll like it, just because in the last 6 months he's grown so much and he's become more active, and he has started to want out. And that's a sign for some of these snakes that haven't always been outgoing since babies and don't normally want out of their enclosures. If one of them suddenly starts to want out, like this is actually the first time that he in his whole life has ever shifted out of his enclosure to eat. He occasionally, like maybe once every 6 weeks, will come out and explore around the room, but that's it. He's never shifted out to eat until this very moment. So all of that is telling me he's ready to move up to a bigger enclosure. Some of the snakes, I put in huge enclosures as juveniles, as babies, as just hatchlings. Sarek was already in a really large enclosure at 3.5 weeks old. I've got several Morelia Bredli that at just a few weeks old went in 5x2x2 enclosures. And they still come out and exercise because they're very outgoing snakes, and I can see that as I judge their temperament and personalities as babies. Some of the snakes are not like that. They're content to stay in smaller spaces, move around less, and you just have to judge that based on the individual. But then if I start to see them moving around more and starting to want out of their enclosures, and then suddenly he had a growth spurt, those are all signs that tell me it's time to move him up to a bigger enclosure, and I'm sure he's going to love it because if you look here, I don't know if you noticed, Black Box now makes these with shelving, and the carpet pythons and the Morelia Bredli just love ledges and shelves, and so I think that Moondor is just going to love this when he moves into it. Well, while I was busy talking, which is pretty easy for me and which I can actually do for a really long time and a lot, Moondor got tired of waiting for me to initiate something and he put himself away. So thank you, Moondor. Good boy. And meanwhile, back over at Sahul's new enclosure, I checked in on him and he looked like he was ready for seconds. Sometimes I do more than one training repetition per session, but I plan that out ahead of time. And if I do that, I feed the snake 2 or 3 smaller prey items that would equal one large prey item that they would eat for one meal. And since this was his first time training and eating in his new enclosure, I only planned on 1 rep. So unfortunately for him, he got a big food item already and we're not feeding him anymore. Are we all set? This is our outro for Serpentes Sunday for December 26, 2021, take 2, because we were almost finished and our dogs just started barking and going crazy, and I guess decided it was time for them to eat, and they were letting us know that. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you got something out of it. We talked a little bit about acclimating snakes to new feeding situations based on enclosure moves, or in the case of Moondor, the first time that he ever shifted out to eat. So you got to see 2 first. You got to see our carpet python Sahul eat for the first time in his new enclosure, which he's only been in for 3 days. And then you got to see our carpet python Moondor shift out of his enclosure for the very first time and eat on this activity stand. Both of those snakes are older. Moondor's 3 and Sahul is 4. And neither of them are super outgoing snakes. They're not super shy. They're visible. I see them being active within their enclosures, but they're not snakes that come out often. They're snakes that might choose to come out and exercise once a month or once every 6 weeks or so. So it's really important, if you have a snake that's not getting exercise out of their enclosure, that you have an enclosure that is spacious enough for them to get plenty of exercise within their enclosure, and that you have plenty of activities for them to do in there to stimulate them cognitively and physically. Now, let's talk a little bit about next week. Next week is January 2nd, 2022, and it is the first Sunday in January, and the first Sunday of every month is our Super Dwarf Sunday. So next Sunday will feature Tau Seti, and this is him right here. TC is our Super Dwarf Reticulated Python from Reach Out Reptiles. Next week's video will be all about him. And if you have a dwarf or Super Dwarf Reticulated Python and you would like video or photos of yours included in any of my Super Dwarf Sunday editions, you are welcome to send those to me at behavioureducationllc@gmail.com or via Facebook Messenger. And it doesn't matter where you got your Super Dwarf from. A few weeks ago we did, or last month's Super Dwarf Sunday featured other people and their Super Dwarfs, and it was just coincidental that all of the people that sent in videos got their Super Dwarfs from Reach Out Reptiles. And that's fine, mine came from Reach Out Reptiles. But if you have one from somewhere else, you can still send it in. Let me know where you got it, how old it is, how long you've had it, and what made you get one, and I'm happy to include that. So until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind, and love your animals. One more thing I almost forgot, but since TC's climbing all around my shoulders and close to my neck and my face, I wanted to say something. I used to be a safety officer for the city of Colorado Springs. I still teach personal safety and self-defense classes. I harp on safety around all of the animals here at the animal sanctuary. I'm really big on safety. And so while I often let the snakes climb around my head and shoulders and drape around my neck, you will never see me let the snake completely coil around my neck, because it takes very, very little pressure to cut off your airway or cut off the blood flow in your carotid artery. And even a tiny corn snake could do that. And they don't even do it on purpose. They just coil around things to anchor and feel safe, and they don't realize what that could do. And so whenever I'm letting the snakes climb around me, I always make sure that my airway is open, that the blood flow in my arteries in my neck is open. I never let them coil completely around my neck. And if you ever see me do that in a video, you absolutely need to call me out on that and let me know that I screwed up. Thanks for watching.